So you want to flip a house, not just one, but build a business around it. Flipping isn't just about buying and selling homes. To succeed long-term, you need a real strategy and structure in place. In this video, we're going to kind of deep walk you through that process and how to make flipping a successful business. So first, we're going to talk about understanding what flipping really is, to kind of level set everyone. So what flipping really is buying undervalued properties, renovating them, and then selling them for a profit. And with this, you want to have a business mindset approach. Well, you approach it like you would run a company. You need to find deal flow to look at a lot of houses, because your first house most likely will not be the house you buy. So how are you going to get the deal flow? And then from there, you find a house. How are you going to finance it? From there, how are you going to manage the rehab? And then from there, how are you going to sell the property? So you're going to have to understand the systems, what your goals are, your budgets are, and everything else in between. We're going to cover that today. With that definition, let's start off with talking about educating yourself first. Big 3 ones here that I think we should cover is learn the numbers, study your market, and something around maybe mentorship and networking. So what are your thoughts? To me, the most important piece is knowing the numbers. And what are the numbers people got to know about?
And this is what most people struggle with, right? A lot of our students always are asking us, is my numbers right on this, right? We verify, we look at them, we either verify for them or tell them where they could be wrong. Right? So you're looking for something that has value, right? It has some equity. So if you're picking up a property that has an after repair value of say 200,000 and you're under contract for 105, and it needs 35,000 in repairs, does that give you enough profit, right? And time to be able to get done? And obviously it depends on the scope and scale of the rehab, but those are the numbers you got to come up with. And that's what Mike and I have gotten really good with doing this over the past 25 years or so. And it is experience, one. And two, you need to have, again, get your team that you're going to talk about, Mike, having a really good contractor. Because there's times when Mike and I look at a property, we do our initial analysis on it, we come up with our numbers, we send a contractor out there and we find out there's more things. Okay, so our $105,000 number may not work now. We might have to go to 85 because there's an extra 30,000 repairs we didn't see or couldn't account for because we couldn't go through the crawl space or go into the attic and see that the roof was damaged, there was a leak or something.
Yeah.
This is what's really, really important on coming up with your numbers and then quantifying your numbers and verifying everything with your team, essentially, right? So you can make it a well-oiled machine.
Yeah. You talk about team, and it's the contractors, right? And it's the agents, the real estate agents on the sell side. And it's making friends with other local investors too, tap into what they've experienced over the years. Where do you recommend finding agents, contractors, or even other investors?
Well, there's great place, your local RIA, right? Your local RIA is where you're going to find a lot of newer, hungrier realtors. Definitely, you're going to find private lenders there, potential mentors there too, right? People have some experience that may be in the coaching business or may not be, but they may be willing to, if you pay them or give them a percentage of the profit on a deal, you bring the deal to them and offer them 25%, they might walk you through it and really kind of show you the step-by-step, which definitely in the beginning, when you're agreeing to this is something that's probably highly recommended to do. If you don't have a construction background or you don't have a financial background, it's definitely good to get somebody that's really going to be able to help you out for sure.
Yeah, it makes sense. So next, let's kind of cover, build your financial plan. What are some funding options for people out there, Paul?
So you got asset-based lenders out there, your Lima One Capitals, your Kiavis, your lending ones or lending home, lending one. There's a million of them out there, right? And it seems like every week 3 or 4 new ones pop up. Mike and I, our favorite is private lenders. And we found private lenders through multiple resources, right? Through people we know, friends and family, through the RIAs we've joined, through different groups out there. So that's the best way because it's going to be your most liquid, quick, easy, and usually least expensive money because the asset-based lenders are going to come with points generally. Not that private lenders won't. Some private lenders will charge points too with a little lower rate. Mike and I do a blend. We'll occasionally do somebody who charges points if they're down at 6, 7, or 8% on rate, we don't mind the points, right? We know we're going to turn it pretty quick and we're not going to hold it too long so the interest isn't going to accrue too much. And essentially, the lender is trying to assure that they're going to make some profit because if you have a quick flip, that's 30 days, that money isn't out that long, they're not making as much. So you totally understand that. But your best resource is definitely going to be private lenders or even maybe a money partner. Maybe you find somebody who's a full-time attorney or a dentist or a doctor. They have no time, right? But they want to earn some money on their money, on the funds they have available. So you can either offer them a profit split, where you can just offer them, a fixed rate of interest. We do blends. We don't do profit splits, but we've been seasoned in doing this for a long time. But don't be afraid to do profit splits. We know a lot of investors who start just doing profit splits in the beginning. And then as they get seasoned and understand what they're doing, then you can get lower rates. You can get better deals out there.
Yeah. Another thing, as you treat this as a plan, business, what type of, there's no right answer. We're not giving legal advice here, but business structure. Should people start as themselves, start an LLC, et cetera? My recommendation is every situation is unique and different. Yeah. You should talk to a local professional on that you meet maybe at that RIA that Paul mentioned earlier to find other team members. For me, my first property was in my own name. I didn't have anything to really protect potentially because I earned nothing right out of school, but everyone's unique situation is different on whether they should start the LLC first or when they find a deal, et cetera. What kind of, any recommendations there, Paul?
You and I were in the same boat, Mike. So when we first started, we just did it in our personal names. Like I said, we didn't have a whole lot to lose potentially, right? But it's also the speed too, is quick and easy to get done. You were able to get a better mortgage rate, right? By putting in your name than if you're going to do an LLC. We always recommend an LLC. It just gives you an extra layer of protection.
Yeah.
LLC or a trust, right? You could also put it into a land trust, a property trust for protection as well, basically similar to an LLC. The LLCs definitely give you a nice layer of protection. Plus, if you're using asset-based lenders, you are not allowed to put them in your name. You've got to be in an LLC or a corporation. So keep that in mind there.
Yeah, good points. All right, so let's shift gears now, finding and analyzing deals. So how do you go about sourcing properties here, Paul?
So for you and I, Mike, when we were looking at these auctions, looking online, whether it was HUD's back in the day, and we still utilize HUD Home Store, right? But all these auction deals out there, or whether we're looking on Zillow or from the wholesalers, we look at what the price point is. We see what the repairs they potentially have if it's from a wholesaler. And then we try to come up with our own numbers there. You always look at the wholesalers' comps and they're always generally going too high, right? And so we like to look at our own comps. And getting back to the agent comps too, agents can sometimes give you very good comps. And for most of that, Mike and I run into a lot where we're getting comps that we don't think are comps, right? If it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1,700 square foot home, we shouldn't be getting comps on a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 3,000 square foot home 2 miles away from this property. If it's within a community, say in Florida, it's very common in all these communities, right? You want to stay in that community because that community can be far different than community right next to, for instance, right next to me is a very high-end golf community. If you look at houses that are like not even a 1/10 of a mile from me, they don't compare, right? Because they're in a golf community, higher-end homes, it's different. So you've got to look at things inside the community. Mike is really good about looking at big main roads, right? You want to stay away from those main roads or look at everything in this particular neighborhood region. So that's super important. And that's something that not a lot of new investors look at enough, Mike. I think that's something we try to really stress. And we see that right with our students. Their comp area is too big, right? So you got to shrink that comp area. And it's okay to shrink your comp area and extend your time frame, right? Instead of, all right, I don't find many comps, 90 days, go to 6 months. If you need to go to 12 months, go to it. You know what the real estate market has done in that area in the last 12 months as far as returns, whether it's going up 1% or down 1%. So you can still come up with really good numbers on it.
Yeah. When quickly analyzing a property, is there like a quick rule that you use at all? A percentage of ARV or something like that?
So typically what's used in the business is 75% or 70% of after repair value. It's going down, Mike, and because we're more rural areas with less competition, we try to find that 65%. One, it just gives us way more margin and gives us better deals. It may be less deals. We may lose out on some, but we're getting better deals. It's a little safer play in a market where things are kind of in flux right now, right? Or if there's more inventory in that market, you want to go lower ARV as well, or lower maximum allowable offer on that as well, because you're going to hold it a little longer than you will in a market in the Northeast where there is no inventory, right? Where things are going to move quick. And there's so much competition up there because there's not much inventory that you have to make higher offers. So it's really market dependent for sure, but we like it in our secondary, tertiary, and intermediary markets. That's 65% maximum allowable offer.
Yeah. All right. So we covered educating ourselves on this video. We covered, where to get financing, setting up an LLC or not, finding deals, quickly going through them to analyze them. Now you're starting to make offers. You need that team. So it's contractors and tradespeople if you're rehabbing, realtors and lenders, attorneys and accountants. We touched a little bit this earlier, but For us, an example is when we go to an outside market, we actually won't go to that local radio to start. We'll find some local agents that have comps in our development that we looked at, talk to them, see if their numbers seem reasonable to ours. And if we like them, have a relationship over phone, we'll utilize them and then tap into their network for these contractors, for these attorneys, and everyone else in between. So that's how we build our team from an out-of-state perspective. If you're local, utilize the things that we talked about earlier in this video, going to your local radios and needing all these vendors out there, start from there, and then can kind of pivot and learn along the way. So that's building your team. And then kind of wrap up with the last section is like running it like a business at the end of the day. Paul, like what are some tips from project management to marketing, the flip? We don't do it ourselves. We utilize other people. So how do you go about doing that?
So you got to set expectations with people. And mostly for us, it's setting expectations with the agent, because that agent essentially is our project manager when we're out of market. So we want to try to get, when we get things under contract, we want to try to get the contractor set in place so that when we close on a property, they're ready to immediately start on the project. So we're not losing any time and extending our time frame out there. So set expectations on that. Quality of work, making sure they go to, before we make a payment to the contractor, is this work done? Is it up to snuff? Do they need to go back and finish things, right? Is there a punch list of things to do? So setting those expectations. And most realtors that we deal with, we try to find really good professional realtors who have been doing this for a long time in different markets. So a lot of times we only have to set certain expectations. They know how to do the rest. They know what they want the property to look like, where they're going to get maximum dollar, because that's where they're going to make their money on a commission on the sell side, potentially on the buy side as well. They try to double dip with us, and we try to utilize that as much as possible, and then try to get them to bring future deals to us as well. And as a part of setting expectations too, if they see something that looks like a deal, bring it to us, we'll close it with them. They'll get the commission, manage another little project, and then resell again.
Yeah. So to start a flipping business, you want to educate yourself, secure financing, build your reliable team, and treat every project like a business. You don't need to start big either. Even one successful flip can kind of launch your career path and maybe even help you quit your job and do this full time. So if you're ready to flip your first house, drop a comment below with some of your biggest questions you have. Me and Paul can answer them for you or create future videos for you based on your questions.